Mega Varan Malurin, meu nome é João Gonçalves e bem-vindos a mais um episódio de Dragon Age Origins. Visto que vocês estão a ver este vídeo na segunda-feira, espero que todos tenham tido um excelente fim de semana. Nós no último episódio finalmente concluímos a quest, ou main quest, de Brazilian Forest. Tudo bem que ainda temos isto, mas eu não posso completar isto para já, portanto eu não quero saber. Ora, onde é que temos as completed quests? Temos aqui de... não é este... The Blight. Aqui está, Nature of the Beast completa, recrutámos os elfos, regressámos ao campo e a Morrigan basicamente mandou-nos logo matar a mãe dela. E eu vou ver se ela tem mais alguma coisa para falar comigo. O episódio de hoje é, tal como tenho feito e como disse no anterior, entre uma main quest, falo com os meus companheiros para os conhecer melhor. Deixa eu ver se ela tem alguma coisa nova.
Yes? So, full of questions, are you?
Ela não tem mais nada para dizer até eu matar a mãe. Vamos falar ali, antes de falar com mais alguém, que o Emissary Caron. Ou a Emissary Caron é um homem.
You witnessed the rarest of things, Warden. The Dalish stand ready to defend Ferelden.
Ora, e o que é que precisas?
We have assembled on a short schedule. Certain factors of equipment could be better. Crafting components would serve best. Basic ones like elf root and deep mushroom.
Ok, bora, então vamos carregar aqui. Vamos entregar as runas para o Circle. Vamos dar-lhe todas as novices. Agora vamos dar materiais para os dailies. Vamos lhes dar o que é? Pode ser todos os deep mushrooms. E pronto.
Generous.
Pronto, já perdi 2 slots. Já estou mais ou menos a meio. Spell power. Zankyo. Ora bem, quem é que eu vou falar agora? O Zebra não é novo, vou deixá-lo para o fim, que vai ser o mais chato. Vamos ver o stat.
Yes.
Ora, quero discutir algo que tu mencionaste.
Speak then.
Não.
Then I suggest we move on.
O que é que estás a fazer na cara?
Sitting, as you observed.
Não é isso que eu queria dizer.
It's what you asked.
Ok. Conta-me.
I did. Parshera. Was there anything else?
Oh my god. Sim.
I am hardly surprised.
Nope.
Very well.
Oh my god.
As you wish.
Este homem é do piorio. Ora bem. Agora, a Win.
What's on your mind?
Estás-te a sentir melhor?
Oh, yes, and thank you for asking. I'm feeling much better today.
Gosto de ter a certeza que os meus companheiros estão bem.
Well, thank you for your kindness, my dear. It certainly warms these rickety old bones.
I'm sure they do. Mais uma coisa, Win?
What's on your mind?
Está a pensar sobre ser um Grey Warden?
Is something troubling you?
Então a gente espera tanto de mim, meu
No
Deus.
one said it would be easy. You are one of the 2 surviving Grey Wardens in Ferelden. You defend all of us, and much rests on your shoulders. It may not mean much to you, but thank you for having the courage to continue to fight.
Eu vou estar pronto quando o
And
tempo
that
chegar.
gives me hope.
Nossa! Mais uma?
Have you heard much about the Grey Wardens of old?
Eram mais respeitados?
It was said that watching the Wardens ride in on their white griffins was enough to rouse a weary heart and put the dance back in the step of an old man. The Grey Wardens were powerful, feared and respected, but they also inspired the common people. I remember a tale that was told to me many years ago.
Ok.
The blight had ravaged the land for months, and the armies of the great kings had amassed for one last stand. As the sun burst through the clouds that boiled and churned in the dark sky above, it illuminated a vast, seething horde of Darkspawn, with the archdemon at its head. And it was then, when courage seemed to fail, and all lost to death and despair, that the Grey Wardens came. They arrived with the beating of wings like mighty war drums, and stood before the armies of men.
E o que aconteceu?
The Grey Wardens, grim and fearless, marched forth, ever between the men and the encroaching Darkspawn. They formed a shield of their own bodies and held that line until the archdemon was dead, and the last Darkspawn lay trampled in the dirt. And then, demanding neither reward nor recognition for their sacrifice, the Grey Wardens departed. When the clouds finally rolled back, and the sun shone full upon the blighted ground, the great kings knew that they had lost no men, and none of their blood had been spilled.
E quando é que isto aconteceu?
This is a tale about no battle the Grey Wardens have fought, and yet about them all. They have always defended us from the Darkspawn, taking losses so we do not have to. People may have forgotten over the centuries, but nothing has changed. This knowledge has been blessing and burden to Grey Wardens past, and now it shall be your blessing and your burden.
Oh, my lord.
What's on your mind?
Ok, pode ser. Como um Grey Warden nunca vou ter uma vida normal, não?
No, you won't.
Acho que nunca fui talhado para ser normal.
I don't think so either. You would not have been happy living a dull, uneventful life, dying in obscurity. You wonder sometimes, don't you? If your life would be better if you weren't who you are.
Sim.
When I was a young woman in the tower, I came to the realization that the circle would be my life, and I would know no other. Family, love, a simple life. These were things that others took for granted, that I would never have.
E isso... Bah, deixa triste.
It made me very moody. All I could think of was being trapped in that tower with no way out and no end in sight. I started hating my life and myself, and one night I found myself in the tower's chapel. I was seeking refuge, maybe answers.
E então?
I must have looked tearful or made some noise, because the revered mother came out and decided to speak to me. And because I had no one else to talk to, I talked to her. I must have said many silly things, but she told me that the Maker puts us all on our paths for a reason, and fighting our intended course is what causes so much anguish.
Isso fez sentir melhor, mulher.
I thought the old biddy was full of rubbish. I was 15, maybe 16, and I knew everything. So I left, but I always found my way back to that chapel. And as the years passed, I began to see the truth of her words. We were supposed to be polar opposites, mage and priest. But we weren't. There was much about us that was the same.
Ok, acho que eles também têm que... Vá, perder muito.
The revered mother had lived in the chantry all her life, as I had been in the tower for all of mine. She taught me that you can find your family in the people around you, that you can love your work and find fulfillment in duty, and there is joy even in self-sacrifice. If you put others before yourself, then their well-being is yours, and their happiness is your happiness.
Não vai ser fácil ver dessa maneira.
You can scream and cry and be angry about life as a Grey Warden, or you can accept it and allow yourself to see the good in it. This is your choice.
É verdade. Ela tem razão nisso.
What's on your mind?
Fazer perguntas
I
sobre o
will
Circle.
answer to the best of my ability.
E nada. Ora bem, a outra vez. Agora vamos a... Ok, vamos primeiro ao pimpolho.
Look at what your fool dog placed in my pack. A putrid, half-eaten hare is not something a woman wants to find in her unmentionables.
Ok, acho que... Vamos dizer a 4. I think he thinks you need more meat on your bones.
I think I have enough meat where it counts, and I certainly don't need it in my pack. The dirty mongrel can have this back. There. And tell him not to do it again.
Não faças outra vez. És um cão de guerra, não? A nurse. Ai, para o pimpolho. Ok, chega. Vamos a Alistair. Hello, Alistair.
What do you need?
Ask
away.
Grey Wardens.
Such as they are.
O que aconteceria se simplesmente fôssemos embora?
Just left? You mean just left Ferelden? I don't know. If there's an archdemon, however, we're supposed to be the only ones who can defeat it. And that means the blight would grow unchecked. Eventually, other Grey Wardens in Orlais and other lands would hear about it, and they would come to fight it, but they wouldn't come in time to save Ferelden. There's no way. I'm not going anywhere. About the Grey Wardens, anyhow. Fair enough. What do you need?
Nada. Ok. Agora vamos a Leliana.
I was just thinking about what happened to the elves, and I'm reminded of a song sung to me many years ago. It was when my mother died, and this wise elven woman comforted me and told me that we shouldn't fear death or hate it. Death is just another beginning. One day, we must all shed our earthly bodies to allow our spirits to fly free.
É confortante.
It's a beautiful sentiment, I think. One that brings peace and hope to the grieving.
E agora ela vai cantar. Foi uma bela música, digo já. Se alguém souber quem compôs esta música e quem a canta, que diga nos comentários que eu gostava de saber, porque eu realmente gostei da música. Já a tinha ouvido antes. Aliás, está a passar outra vez agora de fundo, mas foi bonito. Vamos para lá.
Yes? Something you need?
I do! Can you teach me to be a bard?
I don't think you have the correct aptitude. I could give you some pointers, though. You may be able to pass them on to someone you know. Let's just go over there, away from the others. For safety, yes? I expect there shall be daggers flying about willy-nilly for a time.
Aí está, specialization unlocked the bard. Vamos gravar, falar com ela?
Yes? Something you need?
I do. Yep.
Yes? What's on your mind?
Ok, histórias.
Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think.
Outra história.
Which one?
Ok, não.
It will come to you soon, I'm sure.
Ok. E agora sim vamos falar com Zevran. Zevran António Bandeiras. Ora, vou falar pelas tuas costas. Tu és um assassino, mas eu vou-te surpreender. Eu vou gravar e vamos lá.
Here I am.
Ok, vamos falar.
Oh, this should be good. Go ahead.
O que é preciso para ser um assassino?
Well, the crows would have you believe that it is an involved process that takes years of training. The sort that tests both your resolve and your endurance. Survive that process and maybe, just maybe, you're good enough to start being considered one of them. But quite frankly, the truth is that all it requires is a desire to kill people for a living. It's surprising how well one can do in such a field.
Não precisas de nenhuma habilidade especial?
I don't know about that. It's simply a slightly different skill set from your average killer as I see it. An assassin simply specializes in striking from stealth, and in maximizing that first attack to be as lethal as possible. Debilitate your foe, either by poison or by crippling their limbs, makes any follow-up combat you need to engage in that much simpler.
Acho que isso é capaz de ser útil.
See? Getting paid for the act is beside the point. An assassin is more a tactical choice than a lifestyle. Of course, the crows like to pretend that their abilities are trade secrets, shrouded in shadows and wrapped in a blanket of mystery. So let's just keep this between you and me, shall we?
Ok, outra vez.
Here I am.
E podes ensinar outros a ser assassinos?
Oh, I certainly could, but I won't. I swore to the crows that the things they taught me were to remain a secret. And while, yes, they are already angry at me, I'd rather not push things, you see. You need to learn the arts of the crows in order to slay Darkspawn, do you? You seem to be doing fine as it is. If you are truly insistent, well, let me think about it. The crows are already angry at me, yes? Who knows?
Ok, outra vez.
Here I am.
Ok, vamos responder.
This should be good. Go ahead.
Ok, o que é que querias abandonar os
Well
crows?
now, I imagine that's a very fair question. Being an assassin, after all, is a living, at least as far as such things go. I was simply never given the opportunity to choose another way. So, if that choice presents itself, why should I not seize upon it?
E o que é que esperarias ou gostarias de fazer em vez?
Now that you mention it, I am not entirely certain. I was but a boy of 7 when I was purchased. For 3 sovereigns, I'm told. Which is a good price, considering I was all ribs and bone and didn't know the pommel of a dagger from the pointy end. The crows buy all their assassins that way. Buy them young, raise them to know nothing else but murder. And if you do poorly in your training, you die.
E esse sistema funciona?
Of course. You compete against your fellow assassins, and those who survive are rightfully proud of it. In Antiva, being a crow gets you respect. It gets you wealth. Gets you women. And men. But that does not mean doing what is expected of you always. And it means being expendable. It's a cage, if a gilded cage. Pretty, but confining.
Ok, eu aqui um corte nas falas, mas está tudo bem. Por que é que não foste embora?
And become the next mark for some up-and-coming crow? Not likely. The only way to leave is for them to think you're dead. And even then, you'd best be scarce. As for what I'll do in the future, presuming that there is one, I truly can't imagine. It might be interesting to go into business for myself, for a change. Far away from Antiva, of course. For now, naturally, I go where you go.
Ok, e os crows não te vão encontrar?
Eventually, can be a very, very long time, if one plays one's cards right. Come now, enough chit-chat. Talking about the crows summons them, you know. Any Antivan fishwife could tell you so.
Ok, outra vez.
Here I am.
Vamos falar assuntos.
This should be good.
Let's go ahead. E... Qual é a tua opinião sobre os dailies?
I know little enough of the Dalish other than the fact that my mother was one, or so I was told. She had fallen in love with an elven woodcutter and accompanied him back to the city, leaving her clan behind for good. And there, of course, the woodcutter died of some filthy disease and my mother was forced into prostitution to pay off his debts. Oldest tale in the book.
Ok, então o woodcutter era teu pai?
How should I know? My mother was a whore, as you'll recall. None of the other elven boys in the whorehouse knew their fathers. I was not so unusual. I didn't know my mother either, of course. She died giving birth to me. My first victim, as it were. We were all raised communally by the whores. It was a happy enough existence, ignoring the occasional beating. Until eventually I was sold to the crows. I brought a good price, so I hear.
Tenho pena.
That's very kind of you to say, but it is not necessary. It could have been much worse. Shall I tell you about what happened to the other whorehouse boys who did not fetch a decent price with the crows? Surely your life has not been so idyllic. People like you and I are not the product of happy lives of contentment, after all.
Sim, é verdade.
My original point is that my mother's Dalish nature was always a point of fascination for me. Through all the years of my crow training, the one thing of my mother's that I possessed was a pair of gloves. They were of Dalish make, I knew that much, and beautiful. I had to keep them hidden, of course, as we were not allowed such things. Eventually, they were discovered, and I never saw them again.
Ok, mas não pensas como deles, não?
Not at all. I think of myself as Antivan. Still, that did not stop me from running off to join a clan when I drew near Antiva City once. Naturally, the reality did not live up at all to the fantasies I had constructed as a boy, staring at those gloves. But such is life. Come, enough talk of the Dalish. Let us move on.
Ok, eu tenho aquilo que preciso te dar, jovem. Zebran, ora, other. Exatamente, ora, alguém que me diga se vir. Next uns Dalish gloves.
Gloves? You're giving me gloves? What for?
They're Dalish gloves, man. Dalish gloves.
Maker's breath. You're right. It is like my mother's. The leather was less thick and it had more embroidery, but these are very close and quite handsome.
Nada.
Do I seem surprised? Perhaps I am. Still, I appreciate the fact that you even thought of me. No one has simply given me a gift before. Thank you.
True. Items received, the Dalish gloves. Não? Talvez estas? Nem sei. Bom, damos-lhe um brinquedo. A gift, fancy scroll, the golden scythe. Nada disto. Andras's Grace. Tem aqui prendas que eu posso dar e nem sei a quem. Ok, isto não. Chantre Amulet. As Ale, Axbone and Beefbone. Eu diria que isto é para o nosso amigo. Skyball também. Será que eu consigo dar isto a Leliana por agora? Ok, não posso eu gravar antes de falar com o nabo. Leliana, vamos aqui. Não posso. Ok, Zerran.
Here I am.
Responder.
Oh, this should be good. Go ahead.
E gostas de ser um assassino?
And why not? There are many things to enjoy about being a crow in Antiva. You are respected, you are feared, the authorities go out of their way to overlook your trespasses, even the rewards are nothing to turn your nose up at. As for the killing part, well, some people simply need assassinating. Or do you disagree?
Ok, nunca mataste no inocente?
Now there's an interesting word, innocent. How many men do you know who can claim to be truly innocent? But if you're talking generalities, such as children and relatives and bystanders and such, never on purpose. But it happens. It's unfortunate, but death comes to us all. If not me, then some wasting disease, or a fall down the stairs, or at the hands of a Darkspawn. It's all relative in the end.
Sim, acho que é verdade.
Death happens, as we like to say. And when I get paid for it, death happens more often. As far as enjoying the act of killing itself, why not? There is a certain artistry to the deed. The pleasure of sinking your blade into their flesh and knowing that their life is in your hands.
Yeah, mas eu não tenho nenhum prazer em matar.
It is not pleasure, per se. Nothing sexual. It is more a sense of satisfaction. A feeling of power. Does that make sense? No matter. There are many things I did not enjoy about being a crow, of course. Having no choice, being treated as an expendable commodity, the rules. Oh, so many rules. But simply being an assassin, I like it just fine. I will continue to do it if I can, even if I am not a crow. Honestly, could you picture me doing something else?
Porque não?
Whereas I am content merely doing what I happen to be good at. It's a talent that not many come by honestly. I don't see why I need not pursue it. Of course, all these thoughts are moot. Chances are still good that you and I will perish, eaten by Darkspawn or slain by the crows at some point. Very gruesomely, I imagine. But it is pleasant enough to chat about. Come, let's move on while our boots still have some wear in them.
Ah, Zevran diz pelos. É não mais uma conversa que eu posso fazer com ele, mas não a vou fazer aqui e agora. Vou ver se consigo dar mais alguns. Deixa-me ver como é que estamos os nossos. Ora, interested. Neutral. Neutral? Are you freaking kidding me? Toma lá os Chantry Amulets.
Is that for me?
Yes, that was for you, you stupid
Wow.
asshole.
Wow.
Isto na Golden Rope Necklace. Ok, Silver Chain. Ora, a Leliana é capaz de estar esta Silver Chain.
Why, thank you so much.
No. Small Carved Statuette. Silver Medallion. Isto é vinho. Onyx Demon Statuette. The Fancy Scroll. Gostava que isto parasse de fazer isto. Andraste's Grace. Toma.
Flowers? For me? They're beautiful.
São as suas flores da tua mãe, não são?
These were her favorite. I haven't seen these in such a long time. They smell just like Mother used to. Thank you. Thank you so much for remembering.
Oh, Jesus! Holy moly, vamos continuar. Onde é que eu estava a ver? Ora, a Leliana está aqui no Care. Este nabo está no 21. A Win está no 39, da ótimo. O Pimpolho está no máximo. A Morrigan está no Interested. Toma lá o. Peraí, Fancy Scroll. A Win, será que gostarias?
A generous gift.
Gostarias, sim,
Thank you
senhor.
ever so much.
Stan, obviamente, está no 5. Robbed Woman. O que é que o Stan gostaria? Gold Bar? Acho que o Gold Bar seria ideal para o Zevran.
I shall treasure it. Thank
Claro.
you.
Custa dinheiro. Golden Rup Necklace. Ora, isto é um vinho. Portanto, não é para ele. White Runestone. Vou dar no White Runestone. Ou Alistair.
I could get used to this, you know.
Aqui está. Desculpem. Peço perdão. Tribal Necklace. Vamos dar isso ao Stan. Que não gosto de Stan. Toma lá.
Unexpected. Thank you.
Olá, ele gostou. Ah, chega. Ok, Codex updated. Ok, muito bem. Vou terminar aqui o episódio. Vou só mostrar aqui o mapa para vos dizer o que é que vai acontecer no próximo. No próximo.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Eu vou vasculhar aqui o. Ban Lawrence Lands. Ok, é isso que nós vemos. Isto é um DLC, ou faz parte do DLC, é isso que nós vamos vasculhar na próxima. Loading. Adeus. Vamos vasculhar isto na próxima. Depois, calhar, regresso ao campo, ou então vou aqui para Redcliffe Village para começar esta main quest. Mas isso é para o próximo episódio, maltinha. Espero que tenham gostado, espero que estejam todos bem. Espero poder contar com o vosso apoio e, claro, contar com vocês no próximo episódio. Fui!